everyone. Welcome to Better Love and Sex. I am your host, Devi Ward, and I am very excited to be here with you again, starting off the week, having another amazing conversation about how you and me and all of us can begin creating more love and better sex in our lives. My new favorite saying that I made up is happy people make a happy planet. And I believe that love and sex are two areas that have a profound impact on our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health and well-being. And if we can find ways to cultivate those two areas of our life, they will flourish and grow and blossom and positively impact every other area of our life. So today on our show, I am stoked out to have sexual researcher Art Noble on the show, and he is going to tell us about female ejaculation. And I've read a lot about it, and I've experienced it a lot myself. It's one of my favorite things to do, and teach other women to do. It's a fabulous thing, very freeing, very fun. There's nothing quite as freeing as having an ejaculatory orgasm. It's very liberating, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. If you haven't had this experience, I have some tips for you at the end of how you can begin cultivating this experience for yourself. So Art is amazing because he after all the research that I've read, he's got some stuff that I didn't even know about, that a lot of people didn't know about. And Art says that there's actually 4 sources of what he calls female orgasmic emission, which I can't wait to hear more about. And he also cites references to female ejaculation in the Bible, which totally blows my mind. So I can't wait to hear more about that, and I'm sure you're just on the edge of your seat. You can't wait either. So I'm going to share some more about who Art is and where he comes from and what he does. Art Noble is an author, speaker, and former radio host on Women's Radio Network. He brings information on our sexuality to millions all over the world. The new messenger of sexual love. That's Mr. Art. Art is the author of The Sacred Female, a sonata of sexual love and spirituality. And I just have to say I'm in the process of reading this book, and there's a whole lot about female ejaculation in this book, and it's like a story of magic, of how awakening to our orgasmic potential allows us to access magic, the magical, our intuition, the flow, the divine flow of the universe. Beautiful, beautiful story. And actually, we have 2 lucky listeners today are going to receive a free copy of The Sacred Female. So in order, if you are interested in receiving a free copy of this book, which I highly recommend, give a call into the studio, and we will take your name and your email, and we're going to do a drawing at the end of the show, and we will email you a copy of this book. So back to Art. This novel, Art's novel, The Sacred Female, is based on Art's unique experiences he later learned are shared only by a few. The purpose of the novel is to open ourselves and be not just happy, but joyful with these new experiences. In addition to his experiences far beyond modern sexual science, Art researched sexual science, microbiology, ancient sexual history, and many fields pertaining to our sexuality. All of this gives him a broader view of human sexuality than most, and I would have to agree. He offers a comprehensive, non-threatening program revolving around love, and particularly sexual love. Thank you so much for being here, Art.
It is my pleasure, Davey. It is my pleasure. Yeah.
Awesome. So I would love for you to share a little bit about what brought you in, what started you studying sexual biology and erotic love. What sparked your interest there?
Well, I'm a guy, all right? Bottom line, I'm a guy, and I like sex. I mean, what the heck? But then I screwed up, I fell in love with a woman. Mm-hmm. I mean, big time. When I told this woman I loved her, I felt it in every part of my body.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, this was...
Yes.
I didn't know exactly what was going on at the time. Yeah, I'm a guy. I'm dumb about these things. But whatever it was, boy, it was amazing. And then the sexual experiences with this woman were fantastic. What I finally, after years of study, I figured out, these are transcendent experiences.
And do you think, I have a question for you based on that. Do you think that transcendent experiences that we need to have love in order to access these transcendent sexual experiences, that love needs to be part of the equation?
I can't say. It was in my case. Here's the problem. Here's the problem, Davy. There are 7.5 billion people on this planet.
Good point.
Okay? And even science, like, for example, Giannini's report on urinary bladder discharge is one woman. One woman. That's a very tiny population.
Yeah, small segment.
One. Okay. And this is where sexual science is. I mean, they do experiments on 200 or 300 women. There's still 3.5 billion women on the planet. So
right.
I can't say that. All I can say is that in my case, it was. So I don't know about others. Now,
that's a wonderful point. That's a wonderful point, Art. So why did you write The Sacred Female? What was your inspiration for that?
Well, one of the problems is that a lot of men are, I won't call them men, I think they're just aged little boys, are trying to put women down for this. And, I mean, one woman told me, she was 83 years old, and she said, I always knew there was more to it than what I was experiencing. And then another woman told me that her husband forbade her from ever doing that again because she left a bigger wet spot on the bed than he did. I mean, that's, big-time ego. And then there was a guy that told me, ooh, that's yucky. I said, well, what about yours? What about yours? I mean, you do it. Why shouldn't they? We both have prostates, And it's what I was after. What I'm trying to get at is that acceptance of a woman's sexual responses is a part of loving that woman.
Absolutely. And I would have to also say, I would corroborate that. So it sounds like that your desire with your teaching and also with this book is to educate people about female ejaculation and what it is, and that it is this amazing, glorious and very natural response of a woman's body. And I can say from my own experience, I had, when I was in my early 20s, I had one partner that I ejaculated with, and I had no idea what it was. I thought I was peeing on him, and he thought that I was peeing on him, and I had never given it much thought. I just, I had an experience like that with a previous boyfriend, and he didn't think anything of it, and he watched a lot of porn, and so he kind of knew what it was, but I really didn't have any understanding of what it was. But I figured if he didn't mind if I peed on him, then I wouldn't mind if I peed on him either.
Okay.
But then fast forward a few years to this one boyfriend that I had, and he got really angry with me for urinating on him, even though it wasn't urination.
Right.
And he screamed at me, and yelled, and in that moment, I shut down. And that was when I was 23, and I never had another vaginal orgasm until I was 33 years old.
Exactly. And here's the thing, Davey, our mind is one of the most powerful things in the world. And I believe that we are subjects of operative conditioning.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the bottom line. But anyway, back to this, we as men need to accept and encourage our women to have these responses. First, now, I'm a romantic as a poet. I'm a romantic, but I'm also very pragmatic. Now, in one of Dr. Whipple's books, she points out that women who ejaculate, and this is strictly urethral ejaculation, they seem to have fewer incidents of urinary bladder and kidney infections. Okay? In other words, it's like guys say, you know, we're blowing the tubes. We're cleaning the tubes. Well, women are doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So let's let our listeners know, because that's the thing. Most people don't understand what female ejaculate is. That's why we think it's pee, because in all honesty, you know, I've been ejaculating pretty much by choice for the last 5 years. And to this day, it still feels like I'm going to pee. So I don't even bother trying to convince myself that it's not pee. I just know that it's not pee, but it still feels like it feels like I'm going to pee. And so I just let myself pee even though I know it's not pee. So so
right,
let's let our listeners know what it actually is. If it's not pee, then what the heck is it? And why does it feel like we're going to pee? Why does it feel like peeing?
Well, all right. First of all, we're going to look at two sources involving the urethra. All right? And the first is the female prostate. Now, the female prostate was formerly known as paraurethral glands or Skene's glands, and I hate to use the word Skene's glands. But anyway, the female prostate is composed of many little glands surrounding the prostate, surrounding the urethra, with up to 200 or more various ducts going into the urethra. Now, as these ducts become engorged with prostatic fluid, okay, you may have the sensation of needing to urinate.
Because it's putting pressure on the urethra.
Urethra, right. Now, here's the next thing. The second form of urethral ejaculation is from the urinary bladder, the same place our pee comes from. Now, the mechanism for urination, okay, is simply a pressure differential formed by the accumulation of fluid in the bladder. Now, in the case of orgasmic emission, this fluid is not urine. Now, they have analyzed it, okay? I'm a guy. I like to look at this as, you know how you girls are always talking about water retention?
Yes.
Well, I look at this as a good way of getting rid of it, see? Oh, honey, you look like you got a couple of pounds on you. You want to get rid of some of that water? You follow what I'm saying?
I totally follow what you're saying. I'm wondering if that actually works, because I had heard you say that before, and that actually inspired me to be more proactive about my own cultivating my own ejaculatory orgasms, because it was very easy for me to do with my partner, but it wasn't something that I felt that I was able to do with myself. So after I heard you talk about that water retention, I was like, well, I'm going to try this and see if I can do it for myself. The other thing that I can say for me, from my own personal experience, as I became multi-orgasmic and as I began to ejaculate, I noticed for myself that my breast size actually increased. I went up 2 cup sizes.
Wow.
I went from B cup to a D cup in these last few years since I've been cultivating my own multi-orgasmic ability. So I don't know if that, specifically relates, but I would have to say for myself, I know that it seems a natural deduction that as my hormones have become more balanced and my sexual energies have become more balanced, that my body and the way my sexual organs in my body has become more balanced and healthy as a result.
Yes, the whole thing. See, I'm frugal. Okay, very frugal. And I hate to spend money. And I'm looking at it this way. A female ejaculation is a hell of a lot less expensive than diuretics.
And more pleasurable, too, for those, because we get to have orgasms. They're fabulous.
I mean, I want to look at all this good stuff from a guy's standpoint, all right? Now, we've talked about 2 of the sources for female emission. Now, getting back to the first one, on the female prostate, we're only looking at maybe 5 milliliters or 5 cc's of fluid that comes out, all right? And this is a very milky fluid. And then, from the other source, from the urinary bladder, well, Giannini's experiment is on his one woman, and that's in the Journal of Sex Med, December 2011. Anyway, he collected 127 milliliters, which is a little bit more than half a cup. Okay? So we got a half a cup of fluid here. Now, here's another thing. We humans are lousy at judging fluids, fluid volumes. I mean, we spill a cup of milk on the floor, and we think we've got a quart down there. You know what I'm saying? So it's difficult to judge. However, I will say that I have seen a hell of a lot more than 127 milliliters. I mean, enough to soak through 3 beach towels, a sheet, and rest on a plastic tablecloth, which is what I recommend.
Yeah, and it seems there's just a copious amount of fluid that comes out. I totally agree. A towel is not going to be enough. I usually say get a tarp. So where exactly is that fluid coming from? Is it coming from the kidneys? Is it coming from the bladders?
It's coming from the urinary bladder. And I think, now here's some speculation, okay? I think that what is happening is that for some strange reason, the kidneys are sucking water out of the bloodstream and the lymphatic system and processing it into this fluid, which goes into the bladder. And then as the fluid increases, the volume of fluid increases, the pressure also increases. Now, as the pressure increases, you feel this urge to urinate, and boom, when you have your orgasm, you start having involuntary muscle contractions. Now, I have seen this kind of sporadically gush out, okay, which is, to me, I'm thinking, and again, this is speculation, symptomatic of the involuntary muscle contractions. Then there is the phenomenon known as squirting. Well, on top of the bladder, there is a muscle sheath called the detrusor muscle. And I'm thinking, and this is, again, hypothesis, not science, I'm thinking that when this muscle contracts, I'm looking at it from a standpoint of an engineer now. What it's doing is it's decreasing the volume of the bladder, increasing the pressure, and therefore it squirts out.
Sprang out.
Okay? So what I'm saying is that there are plausible biological explanations for all of these phenomena.
And it's not urine. That's the key. There's no urea in it, no ammonia. So what is in it?
Wait a second. There is urea in it. All right? And there was urea in Giannini's sample. However, I was talking with Dr. Whipple this morning. She says there's a review of the literature on female ejaculation, and I am under the impression that subsequent, in other words, okay, so you had an orgasm, you ejaculate. The next orgasm that you ejaculate on, there's going to be less, if none, if any. Now, okay, and that is only a small quantity of urea, and it does not have the ammonia smell of urine, nor the taste, I might add. Now, anybody that has a male child probably knows what your intestine smells like.
And so, Art, please shed some light for us on these other two sources besides the female prostate and the urinary bladder. I want to hear about it. Okay.
First of all, let me say very clearly, there is no science on these other two sources. This is strictly anecdotal evidence. Okay? And I have to be careful because Dr. Whipple said she might be listening in today.
She is listening in. Yes, I see her right now.
Oh, great. So anyway, I have to make that very clear. Now, one of the sources is possibly ducts coming from somewhere in the vagina. All right? Now, women have told me that they can feel this squirting inside their vagina. One woman told me it felt like she had a pinhole leak in her urethra. All right? And the duct, of course, is just the opening there. So where is this tube going to? Is it possible that it could come from the female prostate and we're getting a little overflow from the prostate into the vagina? I don't know. It's a possibility. But they've never looked for these ducts, and I don't know if all women have them. You know, like I said, there are 3.5 billion women on the planet.
Yeah, and that sounds like a lot of the studies that are done on women and sexuality are only done on a very small percentage, you know, like a really small cross-section. So results for 200 people aren't necessarily going to apply to 7 billion people.
Right. Now, one of the things that I think it was, who was it? James Perry made clear on the female prostate is the distribution of the little tiny glands about the urethra is different in different women. And there is who was it? I can't think of it. It might have been Huffman, said that this distribution is the glands, some of them in some women, they're collected up close to the opening of the urethra. In other women, they're dumbbell-shaped, where some are at the opening, some are at the back towards the bladder, and others scattered out in the middle. So all women, here's the thing, all women are different. And you can't make any judgments, or all we can do is make generalities. And the thing I loved about Dr. Whipple's work is that she says the evidence suggests, or that it appears that, you know, she makes those kind of statements, not hardcore for every woman, because you're all different. I love it. Now,
so is it your opinion, though, saying that, is it your opinion that most every woman has a G-spot and is able to experience female ejaculation? Is that a natural function of a woman's body, do you think? Can every woman do it?
I know women who can ejaculate with only clitoral stimulation. They don't need G-spot stimulation to ejaculate. Aha! Although I'm not saying it's not a bad thing, you know, but it's not. You see what I'm saying? You can't make these hardcore positive statements about you have to stimulate the G-spot in order for a woman to ejaculate. Not true. I've seen different.
Not necessarily true, but the question remains: do you think that every woman is capable of ejaculating? Do you think that? Do you believe?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So yes, so you think that every woman that it's a natural function of a woman's body to ejaculate?
Yes.
Yes. Yay. Okay.
I'll tell you why. And you wanted to know about the Bible, where it's mentioned in the Bible.
Yes. Tell us about the Bible.
Leviticus 12:2. It says, now in the King James Version, it says, when a woman conceives a seed and bears a child. Now, Rabbi Seymour Cohen, when he was translating the Igarat HaKodesh, which is a 13th century marriage manual for producing learned sons, he translates that from the original Hebrew as when a woman has an emission and conceives a male child. Okay? Of course, male children, you know, in our patriarchal society, that's the way it goes. However, it was the emission, the word emission, that got me turned on. Now, when I figured this out, I called a bunch of rabbis to see if that was the translation, if that was what it meant. And most of them said, oh, no, it's something else. But one said, oh, yes, we've known about female ejaculation for thousands of years. Now, it was believed that female ejaculation was necessary for conception.
Now, isn't that something?
The female ejaculate carried a seed, okay? And the male sperm carried a seed, and these two seeds got together, and that's how babies were formed. And this is possibly true in other cultures as well as the Hebrew culture. Now, that was written, of course, or or came to us from Moses, and so that was around 3000 BC. Then in 400 BC, Hippocrates, the Greek physician, came up with the two-seed theory. Well, I can see Hippocrates sitting in a local wine shop scratching his head, wondering aloud what the purpose of female ejaculate is, and a Jewish merchant says, "Oh, hey, that's simple. She's got a seed, we got a seed." So, bingo, Hippocrates comes up with the two-seed theory. Then if you look in the King James Version of the Bible, in 1611, came out in 1611, it says, "When a woman conceives a seed and bears a child." And, of course, the conception of that seed is on her emission, her orgasmic emission. Now, 1660 comes along. Leeuwenhoek looks through the microscope, and he can see male sperm squirming around in there, but he can't see the female seed. Okay? Well, I think a lot of guys, in our patriarchal society just blew it off and said, "Oh, it must be smaller. A woman's seed is smaller than a man's, so he probably can't see it under the microscope because men are so powerful." I had no concept that the female egg is 150 times the size of the sperm.
Good Lord.
But anyway, then, so they just let it go. But 1784, an Italian scientist artificially inseminated a water spaniel. And after that, boy, it was all downhill for women. Because by 1800, there were papers coming out, authoritative papers coming out that saying women didn't have any sex drive. Even though the Malus Maleficarum in 1486, I think it was, said that women's insatiable lust is the source of all evil and witchcraft in the world. So, it's swapping back and forth. But we are believing modern, it was modern for them, authority. Then along comes Kraft Ebing in, 1896, I think it was, and he says that, female ejaculation is a lesbian condition. Well, around 1900, women didn't want to be called lesbians. And a few years later, rather than call it female ejaculation, Freud, when he's talking about Dora, in that very famous essay about Dora, is saying that it's a vaginal catarrh, which is a discharge rather than, because he didn't want to call her a lesbian, and if she was ejaculating, she must be a lesbian.
Right, right.
So operative conditioning over the centuries has been the key for knocking women out of having an ejaculatory orgasm. Now, as you said, and what I've heard from other women, is that the ejaculatory orgasm is 8 to 10 times more pleasurable than a non-ejaculatory orgasm. As well as if it's coming from the urinary bladder, but maybe getting rid of your water retention and cleaning the tubes out, as we guys say.
Absolutely. So why, given all of that, I mean, and perhaps it's somewhat obvious, but given that, if it is a natural function of a woman's body, why is it that more women are not ejaculating more regularly? Why isn't this a common thing?
Again, I think it's operative conditioning. If you ejaculate, you must be a lesbian.
Ah, right.
Okay.
But we don't really equate it with being a lesbian in this culture, right? We equate it more with peeing, right? Like I did.
Yeah, well, yeah. And of course, down there is dirty.
Right.
Haha. Excuse me. You and I came out of down there. And I don't think we're dirty.
Right. So you think that our cultural conditioning and the messages that we receive in our culture about, sex being something dirty and shameful, and then also, as women, we don't want to pee on our partners. It's really embarrassing. So if we think that female ejaculate is urine, then we're going to hold ourselves back from that and not allow it to flow because we don't understand it. We don't understand what it is, and we don't understand what our bodies are doing,
Okay.
and neither do our partners.
No, and that's what I'm trying to do is educate people about this. Now, there is something I need to say about urinary bladder emission.
Okay.
The bladder is like a wineskin. And if I put red wine in it and I don't drink it all, and then I fill it up with white wine, I'm going to get a pink wine, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. The same thing with the urinary bladder. Ladies, please pee before you come. Please go before you come, all right? So by emptying the bladder prior to engaging in sexual intercourse, you are assuring that you are not getting too much, at least too much urine or urea in the, what's the word I'm looking for, in the emission. Now, Giannini analyzed it, okay, and he said it's just got all kinds of good stuff in it. Like unused amino acids, which form the proteins. I mean, this is not dirty. This is good stuff.
Sorry, go on.
Then I was going to say that if we look now and get away from the urinary bladder, go into the vagina, behind the cervix, into the uterus, this, again, from anecdotal evidence only, no science on this, women tell me that they have an emission through the uterus.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's take a look at the downside of that. The uterus and the bladder are pretty close together, and the vagina and the urethra are pretty close together. So, could they be mistaking the fluid from the urinary bladder for fluid from the uterus? That's quite possible. In other words, I'm not saying that it's a real thing, but until science comes along and says it's absolutely not, I'm going to believe women. I've learned too much in this research not to take them at their word until science shuts them down.
Yeah, I really applaud that, Art, because I have to say from my own experience, in awakening to my full orgasmic potential, there's so little science around female orgasm and even male orgasm and our full orgasmic potential as human beings, because it's only studied by a few rare individuals in this culture. So I think there's so much more that isn't known than there is that is known. We are going to go right into Art sharing with us some of the constituents of female ejaculate. What is in it, and can you drink it? That's what I want to know. If you get it in your mouth, is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Tell me all about it.
Okay. Well, now the female prostate can be identified easily in that small quantity of fluid, milky fluid that comes out by PSA, prostatic-specific antigen. However, that is not a part of the normal urinary bladder flow unless a woman is having a retrograde ejaculation from the prostate. So, in the urinary bladder flow, this buildup, what they have in there are a bunch of electrolytes and unused amino acids, which electrolytes is what we're getting in Gatorade. Now,
all right.
Here's a problem. We humans, all of us, boys and girls alike, we can screw up an anvil with a rubber mallet, okay, and get all kinds of confused. Now, if you are familiar with the term water sports?
No.
Okay, this has to do with urination during sex. And,
I'm totally ignorant.
Some people even drink urine, but this is not my bag. But urine, on the other hand, contains a lot of toxins. I mean, that's what it's for, to clean toxins out of our body. But this stuff, this ejaculate, like I say, it's got electrolytes and amino acids and all kinds of good stuff, and a little bit of urea, but at least the first one. So I would, it doesn't bother me, so that's my opinion. But again, that's only an opinion, and that has to be up to the individual. Now, when we get to the fourth source, which women tell me is their uterus, okay, which makes sense in a way, what they are building up in there, I don't know. There's no analysis. So if there is an emission from the uterus, an orgasmic emission from the uterus, I would surmise, and again, this is speculation, that is something like amniotic fluid. Now, amniotic fluid is what keeps babies alive, keeps the fetus alive, and there's nothing bad in that. Now, instead of having unused amino acids, it has full-body proteins in it.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow. So then it would be regenerative to the body to ingest this type of emission.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And so
I think so. That's an opinion. Okay?
That's an opinion.
There's no science on that, but I think so. And again, I need to make it clear that is an opinion. All right? And I think it's a good one, but of course it's good. It's mine, you know.
Well, I would like to say that there's no modern science on it. Actually, in Taoist sexuality, they talk about the different emissions from women. As she reaches different levels of orgasm, her body creates different secretions and different emissions. And they do talk about emissions from the uterus, and that these are particularly life-giving and life-enriching, containing many hormones and vitamins even, and chemicals that, if ingested, will regenerate the body, body, mind, and spirit.
I think it is so funny that the ancients knew more about our sexuality than we do without having all of the quote scientific knowledge.
Absolutely, I love the two together. I love where the ancient science and the modern science intersects, and where they actually validate each other. I love that. I love that.
Yes, I do too.
We're going to talk a little bit, so just to give listeners a chance, if you want to know more about female ejaculation and how you can experience this for yourself, because it's an amazing thing. And I know for myself, like I shared my story earlier where I was blocked, where I literally was blocked because of a past negative experience, and I stopped having vaginal orgasms. And then in one session with my tantric partner Jacques Drouin, I went from non-orgasmic to multi-orgasmic in one session, quite literally, and became fully multi-orgasmic and began ejaculating regularly within a few more sessions. And I invite you to learn more and start awakening and cultivating this type of experience for yourself, because it's healthy, it's emotionally healthy, it's physically healthy, and it's sexually healthy. I mean, the more educated we can be about our sexual functions, the more relaxed we can be about them, and the more we can just let the body do its thing and take us to these amazing transcendent states of ecstasy, which is our birthright. Sexual pleasure and bliss is our birthright as human beings, and the more educated we can be about how to achieve that, the more we become empowered in our lives.
I think it's uneducated. I think we're educated with a lot of misinformation and disinformation, and the objective is to get uneducated and back to our natural state.
Hallelujah, brother. I hear that. Absolutely. And you had shared that you wanted to talk more about love and the quality of love, because this isn't just about sex, this is about love. So what have you got to say about love?
Okay. I started studying sexual science with Dr. Whipple was giving me all kinds of good stuff on sexual science, but it wasn't explaining things like the transcendent experiences that I was having. Mm-hmm. And finally I got a book by Jenny Wade called Transcendent Sex, and the bottom line is transcendence is simply altered brain chemistry. Okay.
Right on.
Okay. Now, what's happening here is it's a function that allows us to perceive different things. Now, transcendence. Jenny Wade talks about a dozen different types of transcendent sex. And women, a lot of women are having transcendent sex because you guys, it seems like you're easier to give and receive love than guys are. Okay? Mm-hmm. So that's just an observation that I don't know has anything to do with it. But anyway, in Dr. Jenny Wade's book, she says it's nothing but brain chemistry. Well, where does our brain chemistry come from? From our genes that manufacture amino acids which get changed in proteins of various kinds, hormones, enzymes, neurotransmitters and neuroreceptors, and structural proteins. So, anyway, I'm looking at it. I'm going back down into genetics then to pick all this stuff up. Now, Dr. Bruce Lipton, okay, has come out with the biology of belief, which essentially says that what happens to us is that our belief system creates different, in our cells, creates different responses, okay? And if a woman believes that sex is strictly for procreation and not for pleasure, and it's wrong to have pleasure, she's not going to have any. I don't care how you treat her, okay? Mm-hmm. It's our mind. It's our mind
over matter. Yeah, I hear that.
And so our bodies are very receptive to what our minds are telling us. And of course, the mind, I look at the mind as the operating system of the brain. The brain is the hardware, the central processing unit, and the mind is the operating system. And we've got a lot of viruses in our minds when it comes to our sexuality.
That is an awesome analogy, Art. That is a fabulous analogy, and I totally agree. It's what we think and feel absolutely affects our physical form, and our emotions affect our physical experience. Often, I think any body worker will agree, we hold emotional tension in our bodies. It's just a fact.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes.
And this whole thing. Now, your tips. What I'm trying to do. My stick here is to show people that this is a natural response. Oh, by the way, if I ever use the word normal, please hit me with 27 lashes with a wet noodle and stop
all the way from here to Florida. I'll come to Florida just to whip you with a wet noodle.
Okay, great. But anyway, at least metaphorically. But anyway, we are so powerful when we're in our natural primal state. And I believe, when we're talking about love now, I believe that love, I couldn't figure it out any other way. Love has to be some sort of energy spectrum.
Yes.
Of which erotic love is only a small segment on the spectrum. Okay? Small but powerful. And it's powerful because of the passion that we as humans can exhibit with our beloved. Okay? This energy, I believe, can enhance or modify our DNA coding to produce the experiences, the transcendent experiences. This is what this is just, again, a supposition. There's no science on it. Now, there's science on taking LSD to have psychedelic experiences and other drugs, and there's some natural drug occurring in South America that they use for these experiences. We don't need them. We can have them with love. Okay?
Absolutely.
And it's a much more pleasant experience. And there are many other things that happen. Now, I've been accused of having a hallucination on this one, but during orgasm, just before a transcendent experience, my beloved glowed like a light bulb or a firefly. This wasn't just that look of contentment that we see, then we say, oh, you're glowing. No, this was photons being emitted from the skin. Now, it took me years to find out about this, and I had to go into shamanic practices to learn about it. And it's a breathing technique, shamanic breathing technique that allows this bioluminescence to occur. Well, let me finish here.
Yep.
Adenosine triphosphate is an energy carrier, both in fireflies and in us. It carries the energy that we've created by breaking down food from one place in our body to another, all right? What happens is this adenosine triphosphate gets superoxygenated, the cells get superoxygenated, the adenosine triphosphate with the breathing, okay, it gets overloaded. I mean, again, this is a supposition, gets overloaded with energy, and it's given off as photons. Okay? This is, again, I'm looking for biological explanations where there are none in science, so I have to come up with them. You follow what I'm saying?
I totally do. And that is, you know what, Art, that is so awesome, and I would love to have you talk about it more. We have literally like 30 seconds before they close out the show. I want people to know where they can get a hold of you and where they can get a hold of your very awesome book that talks about female ejaculation. So can you give your website, please?
www.thesacredfemale.com, and you are sacred.
All right, and then people can pick up a copy of your book. If they're not one of our lucky 2 winners, they can pick up your book on where? Amazon, and where else?
Smashwords.
And your website, right? They can go to www.thesacredfemale.com and pick up a copy of your book there.
Right, I'll send them a PDF file. Boom, just like that
Awesome.
for $4.99.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Art. It has been an honor, and I would love to have you back on the show to talk about this bioluminescence, et cetera, phosphorus stuff that you were talking about. It sounds fascinating. I want to know how to glow in the dark. So thank you all so much for listening to the show, and we'll see you next week.